So I'm going to turn over to Rick and let him start talking and give you a little bit of information. And then we want your feedback. So I don't know if that'll be a vote, Vicky, or if we'll just do a show of hands or conversation. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Rick.
Okay, well, thanks, and good afternoon from Houston, here in Texas. Yeah, the first thing that we wanted to do was to get a little bit of feedback on some of the what we're calling breakout sessions, which the way we're really planning to do this is we're going to get not necessarily just an expert, but somebody who is knowledgeable in a certain topic and would be good at kind of coordinating the discussion, because the whole idea is that that person to kind of introduce the topic, introduce some things about it, about themselves and what they've been doing. And somewhere around 15, 20 minutes of kind of a little bit of back and forth, then to kind of open it up and let anyone who wants to voice some opinion on various parts of that topic to speak. So that's the whole idea. And Vicky, could you put up the list? And our list is changing, by the way, as we're coming up with some good speakers, and we're going to be changing the topics just a little bit.
Well, and to
yeah, go ahead.
Did you send me a list, or is it what's in the chat box?
Oh, it's what's in the chat box from yesterday's meeting.
so yes, what I sent you, in other words,
What you
I
said?
sent it to you. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's in
So
the chat box.
yes, but I sent it just to you. Then I sent it to Rick. I didn't send it to everyone
Okay.
in case he wanted to scrub it. You're not scrubbing anything, basically, right?
No.
Okay.
No, it's what it is. In fact, it got scrubbed this morning because I talked to someone, went and visited with somebody who's going to be one of the speakers, who's got,
Okay.
I think, a really good one. And,
Well,
and
if you want, I can do a screen share and pop it up there for everybody to look at right quick.
Why don't you do that?
Okay.
I also put it in the chat box.
Because
Okay.
part of what we tried to do with this, we've got keynote speakers who are going to talk about new things that are going on in the government, new initiatives where there's going to be business going, and that one's always good to hear, especially when some of them that you're going to hear from, they're actually sort of tearing it apart, tearing it down, and building it back up. And so some of the keynote speakers are going to be talking on that level. For these, what we wanted to do was to get speakers who could resonate with problems on a day-to-day basis that you deal with, how they work with it. And I can tell you, okay, we've got it up there now. I was talking with someone who's been very successful as a machine shop in the aeronautics and space flight hardware over the past 10 or 12 years. And he's going to talk about what the future really looks like for him and how he approaches clients, doing work for certain clients, teaming with clients, and teaming with other organizations that want to do work, how he sort of vets them to see whether they're really going to come through or not. As far as what kind of equipment he buys, he's looking ahead at what the customers need, and he's going to give sort of his strategy of how he is building his business. And I have to tell you, in Houston, if you go back about 6 or 7 years ago, there were 1,000 plus machine shops. And as of 2 years ago or 3 years ago, they were down to about 500. And my understanding is they're well below the 250 mark right now. And that really has to do with oil and gas and the fact that most of these were doing really low-tech type of work. And he had always worked with doing spaceflight hardware, which is a completely different ball of wax. And so he's going to talk about the strategy of how he does that and what he's doing, the kind of equipment that he's looking at. So that's one of them. I'll go down through, I can kind of go down through these, but another one that actually will be changed here is when it comes to teaming, whether it's teaming on a small project or teaming on a contract, or bidding, teaming to go ahead and bid on a contract with a large or you know, even the cities, like the city of Houston, those type of things. There's things to really be aware of with the people that you're teaming with. And there's some real lessons learned. And we've got a really good speaker who's been in the business really since '85. She's had her own company since about 2002. And she has subcontracts or prime contracts in every single NASA center. And in doing that, she has seen all the problems that you can get into with trying to team with folks. Some have been a real disaster, some have been really good. And so she's going to talk about what works, what doesn't work. We're also planning to have, and we don't know if it'll be combined or not, a lawyer who specializes in problems that people run into when they team with folks on contracts. And that person is going to discuss sort of the do's and don'ts and things to look out for. Going down through some of these others, some of them we're still looking for good folks to be able to speak and coordinate. The question I have, because I didn't want to go into a lot of it, but that gives you kind of an idea of where we're going with this. But I kind of wanted to show this list and have you out there kind of let me know, are these some of the things that interest you? Are there some other things that you think would be interest that you don't see on the list? And so if we could just have, you know, just open it up and give us your opinion, what you think, or you think it's wonderful. So, you know, wherever you want to go with that.
Hello, can you hear me? This is David. Cool.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Maybe I'm not seeing all the way to the bottom of the list. It's kind of okay. Okay. So, you know, I heard you talk about the machining and how that's kind of gone away in the Houston area in the sense of that the oil business mainly is what's affected to it. I think from our standpoint, I see this in space manufacturing. I doubt I'm going to become an astronaut. I don't know what that means, but you know, the other thing is, as far as machining and all that goes, I mean, that's really what the people you have speaking, I think, have helped us a lot with the you know, getting to know how it works in those areas where we're not there right now. And you know, but I think you got a good start for sure. And it's going to be interesting to hear how these people work their way through to get into these other industries and other environments. So I think it's pretty good.
Okay. And your comment on the in-space manufacturing, I'll give you two real quick scenarios. Right now on the International Space Station, they have a 3D printer.
Oh, cool.
And one definition, additive printing, is dealing with metals and resins and all kinds of things. When we say 3D printing, we're usually talking about plastics, and they have one on the International Space Station, and they've actually made a couple of tools that they needed out of plastic that worked out well. That's one. Another one, and this came from the Chief Technologist office. He said, Rick, if you want to think about it long term, he said, when we go and we have basically supply ships, if you will, or supply landers landing on the moon to provide supplies there. He said, once that lander lands, it's of no use to anybody. It's just going to sit there. And what we want, what we're going to be looking for are companies that come up with ideas of how they could actually take the metals, parts, anything that's on that lander, and actually be able to take it and then with a machine somehow manufacture other parts that they need. And so when they talk about in-space manufacturing, it means anything they're actually able to create after they've left the Earth.
Transformers.
Yeah, yeah, Transformers, and they would love that. They would love that. So, but anyway, well, thanks for your. Does anybody else have any comments? Then we'll move on.
Hey, Rick, what I'll do is I put these into a poll question, and when I do that, we'll at least they can do multiple responses on them, and that way we can collate that information afterwards.
Okay.
So why don't, you're going to share that when you do the polling close to the end, right?
Correct.
Why don't, since we've shown the whole list, why don't you just grab the list and send it to everyone too? That way, while we're talking, they can tick mark off, and then whenever you get the poll, they'll be quickly be able to answer.
Okay.
That makes
Well, I
sense.
shared all of the list in the chat box.
Oh, okay, perfect. Great. Okay, cool. All right, Rick, I think you're ready to move on then.
Yeah. So my next topic, we wanted to have for the matchmaking, and I did this back when I was at NASA. We would have there was a group of the large primes, and I was a representative to it. And so we would have people come in and talk about their company and introduce themselves. And so when we went into COVID, I said, let's go ahead and let's do this all virtually. And so one of the things that I wanted to do, which we had never really done before, is to actually meet with the company virtually a week or two before they were going to speak, and to give them sort of a prep session on what the large primes that they were going to meet with were looking for, and who they were, and who they were meeting with. Because one of the things that we found was that a lot of times when they came in to give their, to discuss it, they didn't have a clue who they were talking to. So they would have engineers talking engineering, and these were small business, actually small business liaison officers who were business people, usually out of procurement. And so a lot of times it didn't resonate, and it ended up 20 minutes that didn't work all that well. So we went ahead and I started giving a training session before they did it. What I'm going to show you today, and I'm going to kind of talk it through as if I was giving it, and just so you have an idea of what that is. What I kind of like is, in the end, if you see something that, hey, you missed this, or hey, this could be a little stronger, or I like this, do more of it, or something like that. I'd love to have your comments. So let me get started with that. And I'm going to, I think you have to unshare. And I am going to share. And then let's go to, and I think I'll put them both up first. Okay. I'm going to be running down through this. I'll take this off because most of the discussion has to do with the graphic that you see behind it. But we'll send this out to everybody too. I've already sent this to Vicki. And so Vicki, if you could, somehow get it out to them so they have the list. This is kind of what I'm going to be reading down through. And this is to give folks an idea of how they could do a presentation in about 20 minutes. And it worked out pretty well. We were always changing things and trying to make improvements in that. But in general, it gave them an idea of what the pitch needed to look like. So I'm going to take this off right now, and you'll be sent this somehow. Okay, so this is a capability statement that would typically be handed out at any kind of an event. And the company that did this, Elevate Systems, I had a discussion, they actually pitched to us, and they had a capability statement. It had a lot of different things on it, which most people had a lot of things on it, but really didn't pay that much attention to it. And those are their words, not mine. And so they made they would make changes to it before they pitched it. But the bottom line is, when you give this to a small business liaison officer, they are going to look at it, and if you're an event or anywhere, they're going to look at it for no longer than 20 seconds. In fact, a lot of times they'll look at it for about 10 seconds. And so you have to get your point across that you're someone that they want to pursue in that 10 to 20 seconds. And so this one has been constructed, and the SBLOs all agreed, not just this one, but the other ones that they had seen. This did it for them. A, it has to grab their attention, and B, they've got to drink up whatever they need to see in that 10 to 20 seconds, because they got somebody coming right behind that. At the same time, in doing the matchmaking pitches, the same rules apply. So let me kind of go down through, some of these and what they were really looking for. The probably one of the biggest things would be the NAES codes. And these are not in any order, by the way. I'm just going to kind of go through it. NAES codes. We would have companies that were almost brand new, and they would have 30 NAES codes, and nobody has that. So the rule of thumb is 4 to 7 NAES codes maximum. And if there are other NAES codes that apply, they probably fit into one of those higher level NAES codes. And the SBLOs that you'll be talking to, and at the matchmaking, we're gonna hope we have engineers, we have procurement people, that type of thing, who will be interested in more things. But the SBLOs especially, who will always be there, they know the NAES codes they're looking for. And they meet, and we'll talk about this later, but they actually meet with the engineers. So they really do know the categories they're looking for. Now, the next thing is, what kind of small business are you? And there's several different categories that go along with that. And you'll see it on the list. It's small business, woman-owned, small disadvantage, which also includes 8A, veteran-owned small business. You're also going to have service disabled, veteran-owned small business. And then you actually have universities, which are the HBCU and MSI, which you're not going to be worried about. They want to know what you are, because if they have a small business, and all things being equal, if they got a small business and they've got a hub zone, and hub zones are very difficult for them to make their goals. And each one of the things I told you in their contract, they have goals. And typically your small business goals are going to be about anywhere from 15 to 30% of the contract dollars spent have to go to small business. But they also have to go to, at a smaller rate, if you will, or smaller percentage, some of those other categories. And hub zone is really difficult. So they're going to be looking to see, what are you? In this case, they're an SBA, which is an 8A certified, and they're a woman-owned small business, which also sometimes is difficult to find. So, we're into second 2 or 3 at this point. They've looked at your NAES codes. They've looked at your certification, or your small business certifications. One thing that we tell folks is, go ahead, put your business registrations, your certifications, and your contact information. And if you notice, it's fairly small up there at the top. That's because they couldn't care less about that unless they're interested and they go back and they pursue you. In that case, they want the information there, but don't put a lot of, don't use a lot of room on the, on the page for that. The most important thing, and the way they did it seems to work really well. I actually reached out to the SBLOs on this particular one. What do you do? What is it that you do? We do manufacturing. We do reverse engineering of spaceflight hardware, or in oil and gas, it would be in oil and gas type things and that. And they want to know very quickly, what do you do? In this case, they would look at it, see reverse engineering, stress analysis, 3D, okay, digital twin, which is more of a DoD thing. And they'd say, oh, okay, all right. Well, that kind of fits into some of the things that we're looking for. And the I'll say high level manufacturing, the advanced manufacturing, that type of thing is definitely what they're looking for, because it's difficult to find vendors who can do that and are used to working with the government at any level. So they look at that. We're probably literally up to maybe a second 5 in doing this. The company overview is always nice. It's always good to have one in there, but they're not going to look at it unless they're interested in you. So that's why you want to stress these. Probably one of the most important is, who have you worked with? Because they want to know what your past performance is. And in this case, and I actually had the first person that worked with me on this was actually an advertising firm, and about half of what their work was around the world was with large companies, and they were doing fancy videos, fancy promotion type stuff, and that kind of thing. And one of the things they told me was, you'd never have to put any real words in on what your past performance is. Like, I work with this company or that company. If it's DoD especially, they aren't even going to let you talk about what you actually did, the type of work that you're actually doing. But pictures are never a problem. So there's 2 ways to do this, and they chose to actually put what the device was for their reverse engineering, and then put a picture of the device that they did. And that's all that's necessary. Another way of doing it, which is equally as effective, is if you put the logo, and let's say you work with Air Force and you're working with the city of Chicago or whoever it is, put their logo on there. That's all you have to do. And you can say past performance, you put the logos in there, and they're going to glance at it, and they're going to see whether that's something that you know, you're someone that has enough experience to work with them. So pictures work really good. Another one, which actually I kind of questioned, and I said, were the pictures of the team. And I asked them, and they said, you know, we do this everywhere. That we do this in every country you can think about. You know, it can be Saudi, it can be India, it can be you know, the Canada, you know, anywhere, and they do it in probably most of the countries around the world. They said one of the most effective things you can do is put the picture up there, because it resonates with the people when they're looking at, especially if you're speaking, they see your pictures there. They said there's something about it that just seems to work. They said we can't we really can't tell you why, but it's really good to have the pictures up there. And so let's see, I think I've covered just about everything. But the bottom line here is, everyone that looked at this, you know, that I showed this, they went back and they redid it. And I have to tell you that Marcia, when I was going over this same thing, at the end of it, Marcia said, I'll take that one. And 2 days later, she came back with this, and it looks completely different. Too often, there's a lot of things that are on there, but it's all from an engineering standpoint. So it had a lot of highly, you know, detailed type requirements type stuff. And to get their attention, you want graphics or photos that grab their attention. And this one does it. And they do mostly DoD work. In fact, most of their work is reverse engineering. But this is the 10 to 20 seconds. They can look at this and they can tell whether they're interested. And it's almost like it's almost like a football commercial, if you will, or the Super Bowl commercial. You've only got so many seconds to grab their attention, and you want it to stick in the back of their mind that this is kind of cool. And cool pictures absolutely work. So that's what we have here, and we could actually go back to the other sheet. I think. Let's see if do I have the other sheet? Let's see if we have it here. If we don't, I'll just read it off. Training outline. There we go. I think that's it. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Okay, so that's sort of the capability statement, which is a big deal. And I used to also go on about cards, but since everything's virtual these days, it's not as big a deal. There's just two things there. Cards need to have the capability statement on there. And how in the world are you going to do that? You're going to do it with a CR code. So you put a CR code on the back of your card, and that way they can go to the CR code and they can see your entire capability statement. On the front, you want the two things that are important, three things really, are to have your NAIS code. And of course, you're only going to put a couple of those in there. You want your NAIS code. What you do is really important. And then you obviously want to have what kind of a small business set aside you are. And you can go and you can actually just Google those. And if you put the woman-owned small business or just small business, which is good, small business is just fine. Put those on the card. Those are the three things they're going to look for, because they don't care about your name and they don't care about, they might be interested in the company for a half a second, but they want to know whether there's something they're interested in. So with cards, I actually used to talk about that too. But in all honesty, that's about the only thing that's really important.
So Rick, real quick, when you said CR, the CR code or CR, what is that again?
Okay. For those who are not under 30, the CR code, you can actually just on your iPhone or your smartphone, just get the app for the CR code. In fact, if you just search for the different apps, you will get just put CR code in there and you'll get a dozen of them. What the CR code does is you take your capability statement, and there's a way to create the CR code, which when you get the CR code, I believe most of them will allow you to make one. You just take a picture of it with your smartphone and the CR code software or whatever that's open. And what it does is it creates a little thing that you can't read. It's a little square thing that's got a million different little squares and everything in it. Embedded in that is your capability statement. And so what you would do is you would give that, you would go ahead and you would give that to, put it on, give it to the folks that are making your cards, tell them put it on the back of the card, and they will take it, they'll put it on, and then what you do, you the person who's looking at somebody's card, if you're looking at somebody else's card, all you do is open up the CR code app, you point it at it, and it will pop up. It'll pop up your capability statement. Yeah.
It's a QR code.
QR code. Sorry. Why do I call it CR code? All right.
Sorry.
QR code.
yeah.
Okay. All right.
The only other thing I wanted to, sorry.
I guess.
The
well,
other
I'm
thing
not.
I wanted to point out, the other thing I wanted to point out is there's a legislative mandate out across the federal agencies that they are pushing for a 40%
You're breaking up a little bit. A lot.
score.
Yeah, well,
No, and I'm not sure what you're saying, but Lori always has good information. So that would be, Lori, if you could.
so one of the things she was talking about is the percentage that they're pushing, the percentage of for small business participation on the contracts up to a third. I think that's one of the things she talked about earlier. But then you heard the QR code.
Yeah, and the QR code. Okay, I don't know why I call it CR code. Anyway,
That's okay. I just wanted to double check because I thought I wasn't following that. And if I'm not, I'm figuring I may not be the only one. I may be close, but not quite. Go ahead.
so anyway, and yeah, she's right. One of my jobs when I was at NASA was we had to review and be on the boards of every single contract. And one of our roles was to make sure that that small business percentage and the subcategories like woman owned and that were high enough. That was one of the big things we did. Otherwise, I can tell you small business would only get maybe 2% if it were left up to the other, the other folks on the board. So we pushed up. There were some that we pushed up as high as 35%. So that is an important point. Going into PowerPoint presentation, don't make it too long. In all honesty, I had folks that actually used their capability statement and they talked to that because they had some more pictures and a few other things. Presentations, you don't want them too long. You want to have the information that I just talked about on there. Keywords are really important that you throw out because they attract the large primes. And they involve things like small volume, turnaround, typically in 1 week. And I'll just throw something out. When we were talking about circuit board manufacturers, and that's a big one, by the way, with the primes having qualified ones who can do the higher end type work, especially space flight or aeronautical qualified. They would. What was important was you had companies that did that type of work, mainly in China, by the way, who would make 10,000, 20,000 circuit boards. And that's not what any of these primes are going to be looking for. They're going to be looking for anywhere from 3 to 7, 5 to 10, very, very low volume. And that price is very high, but they're also looking at things like 20 to 30 layers with highly specific type requirements. So you want to stress things like low volume. Definitely talk about who you make it for and exactly what do you make, but don't put a lot of technical detail on there. The fact that it's a 30, and I'm just using this as an example, the fact that it's 30 layers and you've done things for maybe JPL or you've done things for DOD, for satellites, that type of thing, that's all you have to say. You don't have to go into any more details because you want to keep that thing 3 to 5 pages is all you ever want to have on one of those. At least that's what we found were most effective. One thing that I keep stressing is photos. Make the photos fun. Make the photos something that they want to look at because it will hold their attention. And then understanding your audience. And with the matchmaking, we're going to have the SBLOs or the small business liaison officers will always be there. We're trying to get engineers there as much as possible with the primes. We've talked to Boeing, and Boeing has told me that the SBLO will be there, but the buyers will be there. And the buyers they'll choose who they want to talk to, but the buyers who actually buy for whatever company, you know, the devices that are being manufactured for that company, the buyers who buy that kind of thing, that's who they will be there. You'll also have possibly, you know, just a straight procurement person or procurement manager. So let's just really quickly, I'll go down through these and then see if you got any questions. Understanding your audience, the SBLOs are business oriented, typically procurement officers. Don't give them a lot of technical detail, but give them the high level, like circuit boards, 30 layers, et cetera, because they routinely have meetings with the engineering managers and they know what they're looking for that they're having a hard time finding. Buyers, they're procurement people who do the buying for a narrow sector of the organization. Hopefully you would get one that who's talking to you for what you make, and that would be really good. They will talk about, and you always want to ask them, what kind of problems have you seen with vendors who are making, you know, the kind of things that I make? Because we definitely want to avoid them, engage them. The one thing I found out about buyers is once you get them going, they'll tell you whatever you need to know, because they're looking for companies that do know how to work with their organization. And the thing that kicks out most manufacturers is not that they can't do it, it's that they don't understand how to work with the company. So buyers are key if they're there. Engineering manager, he'll know the high level details of what he's looking at, what they're looking at buying, he or she. And they're definitely going to be able to discuss it at a high level, sometimes even at a fairly low level. But it's if you're talking to an engineer, that's where you have your engineer talk to their engineer. And I think a lot of times, if you can generate kind of a camaraderie there, that's your best shot at getting in and at least being able to bid on things. We expanded the time that these matchmaking usually happen from 10 minutes. I've actually been on ones that were 6 minutes, which I couldn't believe. And maybe 15 minutes at the longest. We did it at 30 minutes because the only way you can actually get to know someone and actually talk about what are you looking for, what kind of problems have you seen in the past, what are the things that need to be avoided, can't be done in less than 30 minutes. And if it looks like things are going really well, I would say, hey, is there some way we can call you and have a longer discussion? I think some of these things are going to make it a lot easier to connect. And that's the key. Once you've connected and it's something they're looking for, that's where something's actually going to happen. So I think I've talked long enough on this. Is there any questions out there or comments, good, bad?
I think it's good. It's all true, no matter who you're marketing to, though, pretty much.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and actually we've got one who's she does business, sort of the business end of contracts. That's her business. And she said, I use this exact same philosophy when I'm working with the city of Houston or the state of Texas. And she's done both. And she said, it's connecting with people. It doesn't matter who it is or where it is or anything else. So anything else? Any other questions?
This is Kelly. I have a clarification question. If someone's applied to do the matchmaking, they should be developing all this stuff now, or are they waiting to hear back from Kansas if they've been accepted to do the matchmaking?
I would, this is my personal opinion. This goes, and as David mentioned, this goes for everything. If you put this together, if you go ahead and put this thing together now, it doesn't matter whether you're meeting in person with somebody, on the commercial world or not. All these rules apply. So if you put it together for this, it'll apply. And I will throw out, because I did this before and it's fairly easy for me. If you send me, if you look at your capability statement or even your PowerPoint presentation, send it to me and I'll take a look at it and give you some comments back. Most of the time, people are like, they get to the 95% mark as soon as they, kind of redo their stuff. And we've had some that were actually very, very, in all honesty, they worked really good, but they've been around a long time and they'd kind of, seen all these things. But you're welcome to send it to me and I'd be happy to look at it. So any other questions? Alan, you must have something.
So Rick, on the, I think to follow up on Kelly's question, on timing for those that are in matchmaking, if they're not doing tech transfer, so they're just doing, and I'm not sure we have, Vicky, I'm sorry, I've got a muscle cramp. I'm gonna have to stand. So, sorry.
Too much time
Too
at the
much
beach
work.
there, Alan.
Too much work on the back porch. My legs aren't letting me sit. I'm like, I can't take that. It hurts too bad. The question for the matchmaking, are they going to hear immediately that they've been, I think she said accepted, whether they've been accepted versus been invited to a matchmaking session? So I think we need to clarify that. Kelly, anyone who applies or wants to participate in matchmaking will be accepted. There is a difference between this and the tech transfer. On the tech transfer, Bill, who is out this week, Bill Carey, does goes through and checks with the combatant command, the common capability of the combatant command, what it needs. And when he makes sure that 80% of the applicants fit, we will do up to 20% wild card where he believes there may be a fit, but he doesn't see the exact. So we do that. We do have an application acceptance because of that with tech transfer. On the matchmaking, everyone who wants to participate will be able to participate. For instance, we'll have some people, some of you, because we already know, Rick has interviewed some of them, and I'm going to sneeze. Well, maybe I won't. I was trying to hit the mute if I needed to. So for those that are looking for others, they're attending in order to see all the capabilities. So if you apply with matchmaking, you get to see everyone's capability in the capability matrix. So all of you that apply get to participate for that purpose. We are more than a conference. The plan is for this conference to attract you, primes, and second, third, fourth tier companies like Rick's talked about that are working. So you're already accepted in that regard. The second question then really is, am I going to be selected for a meeting with primes? We can't tell you right now. That's especially in our first year. Some of you probably won't know, in my prediction, until the week before and maybe the Friday before, because we're pushing for as many primes to participate as possible and to create as many matchmaking private one-on-one sessions. So we don't know. I would say you've got to make a decision as to whether or not this conference is worth your participation. For $129 soft cost going to the host, I would think it's a no-brainer, because you're going to be meeting just like today. Each of you could be meeting with each other. You're going to be meeting with others during that conference, or you should. Rick hasn't said this today, but we've talked about this. When we send out the capability matrix, you get to look through there, and as soon as you see someone you want to meet with, not a prime, because you won't see the primes on there, okay? But everyone else on that list, you see someone you want to meet with, you submit that to Rick, and then Rick does his job with the team to reach out to the other person to get that matchmaking going. So there's more than just prime to small business. There's small business to small business. Everyone on that on the capability matrix list has the right to ask to meet with anyone else during the conference and obviously beyond the conference. So we encourage that. So I hope, Kelly, I think that we're getting some really good questions today as we're starting the new part of this, the matchmaking. And I realize we need to send out an email with some of the questions you and some others have written. We need to get that back to everyone. So I think that's a great question. I hope that answers it.
And not specifically for the matchmaking piece, but for those of you that have applied for the tech transfer activities as well, those emails are now going out with those draft documents or access to them with outlining your next steps. So be watching for that. And then, you know, it may be we talk about doing the same kind of thing or something similar with some of this information that Rick's provided that we send out to everybody that's applied for the matchmaking.
Yeah, so if you look on Encountering Innovation, Rick, are you going to show anything else on here?
No, I'm done. We can get off.
Okay, if you'll stop
share.
share, I'll flip over right quick to show folks. Hopefully you're noticing this, but give me just a second and I'll pull it up.
And while you're doing that, I just want to last comment on the matchmaking. When we first started putting this together, and the idea was the primes, and of course, as long as the primes got the select folks, you know, we had a better chance of getting them in. I showed it to some of the other small businesses, and their first comment was, "Hey, getting with a prime is always tough, always tricky, and not that easy. If you're going to make this matchmaking really effective, let us pick other small businesses that we want to team with or potentially team with. That's going to be a lot more effective." And that's really why we're letting you choose who you want to. And I'll make it happen once you choose them.
Yeah. So that's it's extremely important to us. We are part of our content, like he talked about early in the categories, is on teaming, on from a legal perspective, partnering, joint venturing, collaborating, however you want, whatever term you want to use, to where you start that matchmaking conversation. What should be etiquette? What are things that we need to create as far as an atmosphere? And as part of the ecosystem, I've told Rick and the others, we need to make sure that we're helping set the standards as to how we should behave as an ecosystem working together with each other. And I won't go into those today, but we've got some great examples of good behavior as well as poor behavior, and we're going to make sure that conversation comes up during some of those trainings, to where hopefully you as an individual feel comfortable working within this ecosystem to work together. Okay, so if you don't have a question, or if you'll hold, I'll flip over here to you see the Encountering Innovation website. For those of you that have already applied, you're going in through tech transfer or matchmaking. Beyond that, you've got materials. We've done a better job on the encountering, or a more complete job up to date, because Rick's been busy in the inventing as we're going through with this. On Encountering Innovation, on the tech transfer portion, we've got videos all the way through, training wise, and then we've got supporting documents. You've got more documentation that you have to do on the tech transfer side. But that's there. On the matchmaking side, you'll go to the same location of how to participate, but below that are video links on things that we've already talked about in depth. One of the things we're challenging Rick to do, just like today's document that he showed on capability statement example, is we're going to try to set and place document tabs over buttons on the right side of this, just like we did with the tech transfer, to where everything you see, if it's something you need to see what it looks like, that you can click on that and see that information. But as a matchmaking participant, you will get the capability matrix. And so just like we talked about for tech transfer, quad chart information paper, pitch deck are private to the tech scouts, and that your bluff is a public bluff, bottom line up front, that's public. It's going to be on the website. It's going to be disseminated. We are, as we move forward, going back in time and asking everyone for their updated bluff and their updated poster board. 2017 did not do, well, they did a poster board, but they didn't do it the way we did it, the way we created it and made it work. I think works better now. So if you're one of the tech transfer, then you have a poster board. We want that to be public. And my point about that with matchmaking is your capability statement is designed to be public. You're passing it forward to someone that you're engaging with. If you're understanding that, then you realize that when you fill out your capabilities the questionnaire for the capability matrix, every small business, everyone that's participating gets a copy of that, as well as the prime. It is putting your foot forward in matchmaking. So obviously you're not going to put anything on there that would create concern for your IP, whether that's your manufacturing IP or anything else. Does that make sense? Everybody, if it doesn't make sense, speak up if I've confused you. Good. All right. So I just wanted to point that out as we go forward with that information. So Kelly, everyone gets to do matchmaking. We just can't guarantee how many will get specific prime invites. All right, any other questions?
So this Kelly again, we have small businesses that have very limited resources. It's 1-2-man shop. So they're trying to decide, do I spend my time building my business or do I spend my time working on this kind of thing? And I know you'll say, well, this is building your business, but when will they know if they've been selected for the tech transfer piece? So they know, should I spend my time working on my bluff and capability statements and those type of, all those things you showed? When will they know?
So you,
tech transfer?
all right, so you mix two different, just to be clear, to clarify.
Well, I know that I know capability statements are not part of the tech transfer part, but they do the poster, they do the bluff. You had a whole list of things that they do. So when will they know that they are in? So they should start working on those. Because they have to make business decisions. How do I spend my time to benefit my business best?
Right. So I think that's a perfect question. Because they get the documents back from Bill and Vicky, I would not encourage anyone to work on their documents until they get their basic documents back. So until that's sent out, and Vicky, are you up to date now with everyone?
Not everybody. I'm finishing those up today.
Okay.
But the decisions will be made as far as pitch or poster by the 13th of August. Everyone will know.
Yeah. So Kelly, I think in that regard, that should help you. There should not be a high degree of concern of whether or not I will have time to complete those, because the documents coming back should be fairly obvious to you as the tech coach, as well as the client as to, did they put too much information in a section? Did they not put enough? So as soon as August 13th comes along, you'll be able to you can give them that information, feedback now. It's good for them. Now, whether or not they want to invest time in it, I would say they certainly can wait until after August the 13th. I realize that may be the personal issue, that they've got issues. So if they do have concerns that timing will cause a problem there, you're more than welcome to email specifically for a client to ask questions to where we can try to get that answer to you quicker.
I just needed the August 13th date because I was never given that. So thank you.
Okay, cool.
One quick follow-up question. Will all the matchmaking sessions be taking place in the September EI timeline?
Yes. Everyone that we do in the matchmaking portion of the event is scheduled September 13th through the 17th. So we've got 80 matchmaking sessions scheduled, 80 rooms. So if you get 3 invites or you invite someone and you have 3, then you'll be assigned room 1 through 80. So you may end up with room 12, 15, and 40. That will be chronologically in time. So that it'll be the 13th through the 17th. Obviously, if you want to meet with someone that you meet that week, we're more than happy to help encourage that. Do an introduction, or you can do that as well.
Thank you so much. One quick follow-up, and that'll be it for me. With that in mind, and knowing that we're being selected for potential, or we will be invited for potential meetings for the matchmaking, after August 13th, ideally, when do you think it'd be best to have some of our rough draft materials in a better form? As in, if we work on some of them now, would it be provide us a more formalized background on our ideas to help make us more attractive for invitations for matchmaking? Or is it better to wait till after August 13th?
Okay, so you're mentioning matchmaking versus, so trying to make sure we clarify, August 13th is for tech transfer. So if you're pitching, or you desire to pitch with the DoD, well, the tech scouts, of which majority of them are DoD, there will be NASA representation in the tech scouting, whether or not they are from NASA or not, because Tim Fowler does that for Space Force, Spacecom, I believe, as well as NASA. So we know there will be tech scouting there. Tech scouting, so tech transfer, that's August the 13th. On matchmaking, you already are accepted for matchmaking. It's a matter of how many matchmaking sessions either you invite for someone else that you're proactive. You can't invite a prime because primes aren't on the matchmaking, on the capability matrix list. All small businesses, Jim Baker, if he chooses to participate, like he's talking about, he's got to get into the program. So everyone that, as far as I can see, the way we're trying to host this, everyone that participates in matchmaking, the capability matrix, will see each other. So those you will be able to, as soon as Rick completes that. Part of that is getting that core group together, which is what we've been working so hard for outreaches. We've got plenty of conversations of people that plan on participating and they haven't completed yet. So we're trying to get a large enough core that when we send this out to you, that it makes sense for everyone. So at this point, that's a sliding date. I would say we need to come up with is probably after August the 13th, we need to be able to send that out fairly quickly, Rick. Will you be able to, or do you believe, based on what you've seen so far, be able to provide more training on the capabilities matrix questions? I mean, have you seen enough information to know, do you need to give feedback to people?
Well, of course, what I see is just the written word on the capabilities and what they filled out and everything.
Exactly.
What I went over today, I don't see any of that, nor do I really understand, whether they've got it in something that's sort of that 20-second form. So I can't really answer that. I will tell you this much though. People will be signing up right up to the last minute. We will
Right?
keep adding them to that matrix and we will send periodically that out to everybody. So if 20 people sign up after the August 15th or whatever whatever date we come up with, which I know will happen, we will send them out. As far as training goes, I think we should just do at least one training session, just as I did it today, and maybe two. And I would say do it in one in about 2 weeks, and then one probably the first week of September again, so
So,
people get a chance to see it.
so based on what I see, I think to some of the questions I've seen today in emails and then what we're hearing, as someone who hasn't participated in the matchmaking, I think my part of my question to Alan Snyder's point is I would want to know, are my answers that are in the matrix as it stands today, is my information good on a level of, scale of 1 to 10? How am I doing with what I have answered? Now I realize I've got a specific taxonomy number and certain things that I can't change. Basically,
Right.
it's just whatever that title is, it is.
Yeah.
But in the descriptions or in what I've done, who I've worked with and things like that, that's the part that I think I would be challenged with to know, because we've been telling everyone this is a collaborative process, put something down, including I've actually told people, if you don't know what to put there, just say, hey, Rick, I need you or Alan to give me a call. I mean, put that in the verbiage where we see it. So I
Well,
think one of the things
yeah. Well, the
we need
short
to do
answer to
is,
that,
yeah, go ahead.
answer is, I'll be thoroughly starting to go through those next week, what we have, and as they come in, I'll keep looking at them. And it's going to take a week to get through them. I don't expect, from what I've seen already, I don't see a lot of changes, except maybe shortening some things here and there. And frankly, unless it's just sort of missing the mark, there's no real reason to change it. But I will go through it next week, and I will get back with anybody that it looks like it needs to be changed.
Why don't one of the things I'd like to propose then is, why don't we dummy up a matrix? It can be 3 clients, none of them real, but based on what we're seeing, something good and maybe something weak. And let's plan for next week to at least cover. Now, do you know yet whether or not our prime is going to be here next week?
I don't know. I haven't heard from her, but I'm planning to get a hold of her I should get a hold of her this afternoon.
Okay, well
That's
then
the
I don't
plan.
want to say it yet because I don't want to put them on the spot. That's not fair.
No.
I think to some of the questions we've had, we're going to make sure that we give you some examples of either made up weak or examples of what we've seen, where maybe something that's weak versus something that's really strong, to where you see some examples along with direct feedback, because we will do our best to feedback to everyone. Most of you will get your feedback. If you're like with Kelly in Wyoming, Kelly has the experience to where those in Oklahoma, Texas, Colorado, that they can give good feedback. But with Rick's experience, he's going to try to do his best to give every one of us specific feedback or enough examples that we feel confident that our matrix, not only the capability statement, but that the capability matrix represents you well. So I think that's an important deal that we need to make sure. So let's make sure we put that in next week's for training that after you've seen all that you have. Cool.
Thank you for all the information and answer. I appreciate it.
You bet. We want to help you guys. This is where we're moving to with encountering innovation. Matchmaking is something we hoped for in 2018, and it's taken a while to be able to, and we're still not where we want to be as we continue to innovate this tech transfer conversation, because we're watching DoD change in front of us. people that just moved to a certain position, they're now retiring a few months later. And we're like, what just happened? That doesn't make sense. So things are continuing to change in front of us as we watched AFWorks, we watched Air Force, we watched SBIR, things changing. So we're watching this stuff happen in front of us as we go. That's why I keep telling everyone, you either, if you get involved in commercializing technology, you either realize you've entered a dynamic program or a chaotic one. And sometimes it's a little of both, but it's up to you and your attitude as to how you want to participate. And so we hopefully won't drive you too crazy as we move this forward. We'll do our best to provide answers. If you're not sure on something like Kelly a while ago, Kelly, I apologize if we didn't have the dates on there. We should have had that out there. We've been busy trying to build the matchmaking. And so part of that stuff we told in past, we've probably let slip this time. So we will do our best to keep that information up to date. So please don't be scared to ask a question or tell us, hey, you're confusing me. We get it. If that's the case, we need the feedback. We're not going to be insulted. It takes a lot of people to make this happen. Okay, I think we're in overtime. Bill would be shooting us now. He's in South Dakota, at least I think he's still there. And so he should be back hopefully sometime this weekend. We thank each of you for your time. You're more than welcome to network or talk to each other. I'd love to hear a few of you tell us what you think about your possibilities or what you're hoping to get out of this. So if we could get some feedback from some of our participants, that'd be fun.
Well, obviously, getting the opportunity to meet and work with other companies, I mean, is the the primes or whoever the large sub-tiers is obviously the really great thing about this. And I think that it's really the marketing and the exposure we need. So I think it's going to be a game changer for many companies.
I appreciate you saying that, David. I will tell you, I'll let you know, Rick is working on trying to get up to 25 second, third, and fourth tier companies to join this. So David has got a track record of being very proactive. I hope I'm not saying anything that I shouldn't say, David. He has been one of the most proactive salespeople I've seen at selling his company in the times I've met and seen him. And so for those of you that are less in sales, then trust participation and trust who you are and what you're good at, and try to put that forward in a way that we can help you in that matchmaking. If you come and you don't get anyone to meet you and we can't help get any networking, then we need to take a look at what's wrong with either the process or with who you are as a company. Because if the process is working, then why is no one talking to you? And if the process isn't working and you've got what you've got, then we need to know what's wrong with the process. This is our first year of a proactive, intentional matchmaking. It's different than what some of you have had in the past. We believe it's better, but we may be wrong. At the end of the day, you may be one of those that should go to the matchmaking programs where you get in there early and you punch the list and say, I want to talk to these 8. They have to talk to me because they signed up. I get 5 minutes or I get 10 minutes with them. I don't care. I want the 10 minutes. What we're doing is 30 minutes, but the primes are getting to choose who they want to meet with, and then as you meet with others. So we're trying to make this to where it's more productive, which means less meetings, but hopefully better. Any others? Okay, well, Alan, you started to say something?
Oh, I was just going to add on and it basically reiterating what you said, but beyond connections is just looking for feedback and greater input from different perspectives. Sometimes it's better to have a perspective from the outside in. So, but I didn't mean to extend this longer than needed. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. I just telling you folks from our perspective, one of the things I know that I used to see this as a regional sales manager. One of the best perspectives that me and our area sales managers got to do was we got to see company after company after company as we routed around in 5 states, seeing people, or as the area manager routed around in their state. We get a regional perspective. I also then became a small business for a period of time. And it is amazing how cut off from the world you feel I did as a small business. So I've seen both sides, and I will tell you, participating in something like this, networking, coming to the lunch and learn, there are times that you'll show up and you're going to go, I don't think I got a thing out of today. We've had tech coaches, our business advisors, we tried to get into this. And I know for a fact, at least one of our business advisors came to our worst lunch and learn. It was the most disconnect of information to our group. And it wasn't really any one particular's fault. It was the invitation, and it was what was said probably only needed to be said to me. And even I didn't catch a lot of it. And so that person said, well, these don't work for me, and they left. If you're willing to know that every once in a while something's not going to quite fit you, it's not going to work, but you keep coming and you keep working, try to meet others. I do believe what we're doing makes sense. I don't see a lot of other programs like this. This is your program. So please give us good quality feedback, give us good advice, tell us if we're off base, but help us make this program better for you. I will not be offended. Just be a little kind with it, but we are trying to make this better for you. So as you go forward, this is the first year in matchmaking for us. So we really want to hear your input where we can make this better. This is not a one-time. This is a continual process that we are planning to make this where this is ongoing for you, not just once a year. Anyway, with that, I'll shut up.
Alan, I just wanted to add one thing. I mean, one thing I've done in my career has been, vice president, director of marketing and all that through different companies I work for, and then doing my own company. The one thing I know is patience and perseverance. These meetings and these things you're going to get exposed to will not net you something in a week. I mean, it took us 3 years to get into Lockheed Martin. When we started, really closer to 4 in some case. You really go back to when we actually started talking. But those customers that, it's usually a 2-year process to see an RFQ. You might see something in the first few months, but it's really planting seeds, sticking with it, being persistent, and once you get that contact, grow it. Don't let them forget about you. And you're gonna get work. It may not be from everybody, but you're going to grow. That's all I got to say. I just thought I'd throw that in there because I kind of know how some people might feel about that.
Well, thanks, David. I really do appreciate it because this is not a conference program, and we are not about trying to get your money to participate in the conference. I've told everyone that I've invited, if you can't participate in the conference, but you still want to participate in the program, absolutely go right ahead. We will not stop trying to help you and trying to move this program forward with you if you don't participate in the conference. That's fine. We're trying to make the conference to where we attract the primes to where they come back. But we're already getting success. Hopefully, watch for next week's Lunch and Learn. We hope by Monday or Tuesday we will announce. We're doing our best to have the prime do a how to do business with us to where we can use it as an outreach and as a service to you. But I don't want to say who it is and what we're talking about until we get there. Okay, so. Kind of like working with you, we try to hold working with our customers and our clients confidential and not speak where we shouldn't speak. So hopefully you can respect that. Cool. Well, I wish everyone a great weekend. Hope you're not having to work as hard as I'm going to go out there and work on our porch. We took a 14 by 15 building apart and putting it back together and adding to it. So it's been kind of crazy.